Welcome, everybody, to the Troubadour Show. My name is Kirk Barbera, and I'm here with Marcia Lopez, and we are going to talk about the Femme Fatale character. Marcia is an actress, and she was recently in a film that's now on Amazon called East Bay Confidential, where she played a Femme Fatale character. Now, in what I do, there's so much canonical roots to the Femme Fatale character, going all the way back to ancient Greek theater and poetry and so many interesting things. So we're going to talk about portrayals of this character, portrayals of the female character today, and in particular, her portrayal of this character in East Bay Confidential. And I just want to say, please go see the movie. It's a great movie. I've already done a discussion with the director, Chris DePredis. But the movie East Bay Confidential is about a disillusioned Iraq War veteran who's framed for a murder by a beautiful social media influencer. And guess who that is? He must track down the only person who can testify on his behalf, which is a former sex worker on the run from a murderous gangster. If you know film noir, that's definitely film noir basic premise. So we got all the great tropes in there, which I love, because we don't make film noirs that much anymore. So it's really cool to see the visual and the archetypes and the characters brought in a modern, interesting setting. So I'd like to, bring you into this conversation real quick by asking you about your character, and think about people who have not seen East Bay Confidential. How would you describe your character?
Thanks for the introduction, Kirk. I will say that East Bay Confidential is a kind of film that allows for a character like Maurice to explore what it's like to live in a world where she's never been favored and she's been underestimated because of her looks, because of what she does, and also like her past. We don't get to see too much of it, but if you look and if you read between the lines, you will see a pattern of females that have ultimately had to play the game, the long game of manipulation to get away with murder. It's based on survival instinct. From my that's how I approached the role. But it's a lady, we call her a femme fatale, an influencer, because it's there on social media, and that's something that we wanted to also introduce in the film. But it's somebody that hasn't had the best life, honestly, and the only way that she's known how to get through and survive is by using her looks and manipulative tactics to survive.
So in the story, again, we don't want to give away too much, but maybe give some teasers. How do you think she fits into the story for people, again, people who don't know? So she is well, go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I will say she's the kind of person that builds the spiderweb, traps everybody in it, makes everybody else do the dirty work. Well, you gotta see the film to know how it ends. But it's the goal is like for her to have everybody follow her orders without them knowing that they're doing so.
And your character isn't, like, in some cases, the femme fatale could just be like a one-dimensional character that's just kind of a trope, but you actually have a kind of arc in the story. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and that was what drew me to the role the most. I think sometimes, like from an actor's perspective, when you are encountered with a script, sometimes it can be one-dimensional, like this is what the character is. You have an archetype already built in for it. But there's other times that you come across a script like Chris's, and you're able to have layers, and you're able to dig deeper, which is what fascinated me the most. Because I would say, like, for the film itself, like, you see different perspectives of her, and you see her act in environments where you wouldn't know what to expect. So I love the element of surprise that I think Marie brings to the femme fatale archetype.
Yeah, and so obviously in the plot that I already read, you play the beautiful social media influencer. Has there been a lot of social media influencer types in femme fatale? Like, is that even neo femme fatale? Is this one of the first or only ones where it's like you're actually a social media
It's
influencer in the show?
interesting. It's such a good question because in my experience, when I was doing also research for the role, there's nothing that I hadn't really seen a film like that. I think there was one film that's similar that would include the social media aspect of it, but not the femme fatale. You would see female characters being portrayed as mean girls, right?
Sure.
As but not the archetype of a femme fatale that we also know in film noir and neo-noir. So to me, this is the first time that I've seen a crime slash action slash film noir film where you're able to have the standard, oculus of this film and a femme fatale in it.
Yeah, because I think there are female characters, I think of Gone Girl, that are media manipulators.
Yes.
Oh, I love Gone Girl. Yeah, it's great. The book is great too. Where it's like there's a media manipulator, but she's not what I would think of as a social media influencer who's
a mysterious allure to it. No, I totally agree with you because that's not. I think the goal here is to also, and I don't want to speak for Chris, but we are in the era of trust and distrust, which is it's very difficult to trust media. Everything is very polarized and controlled. And social media is one of the largest aspects of it. And I think there's some sort of immunity that people think comes with it. There isn't such thing. So we're often told and seen, what our life is supposed to look like based on social media. And what you see is an image at the end of the day. It's very interesting how manipulative this new era has been, especially with the use of all of these apps. And that was one of the other things that we wanted to showcase, right? You think you know someone, you don't.
Yeah, and it's definitely clear for the protagonist, the Iraq war veteran, that he's in this really low place and he's obsessed, it seems, with social media in general, which I think is a common thing when people get into kind of, not to say that I use social media, and I don't think it's just always destructive, but it can be that way where you become obsessed with these cardboard cutout figures in social media that is not a real person. And what you guys did that I thought was really interesting was literally bring him into the behind the scenes as a character. And then the real character, your character, kind of, isn't nice to him in the end.
Because it's also like going on the same lines that you're saying, a lot of people are searching for an escape.
Yeah.
And especially for people that have had a history of trauma, this serves them as a way to escape their own reality when they haven't addressed it, which is why having somebody like Miguel, for example, that has suffered, he's a war veteran and, he has had trouble of reintegrating into society. And you're going to rely on what other people are doing, right? Because that's how we learn from a young age, like how it is that the world works around us. And that's why I think he was a particularly vulnerable victim to the trap of Marie and the rest of the characters in the film. But at the end of the day, everybody's just trying to find a way out.
One thing that was what you're saying is making me think of is like the movie Double Indemnity. I don't know if you saw that one. That's like it's one of the quintessential ones. I saw that, I saw it in film school, but then I saw it, I think when I was, 34 years old. So a little while ago. And I remember it was a very interesting experience because I think I even saw it with Chris when I was around that age. But
no way.
Yeah, things like as we saw it together because we had he had a little film watching club, and I joined. That's how I met him. And I just remember thinking, as I was a single 34-year-old guy, and that's there's a vulnerability in the sense of uselessness, which is what that character's about. And then the female character comes in and kind of utilizes that by appealing to a kind of desire that he might have, which is very similar to what you guys did, which is wanting this life that the female character is kind of presenting, being in this kind of, I'm useless in society because I'm not in a war, I don't have anything to do, and I don't have a family type thing. And, it's the femme fatale character to me really seems to represent this male anxiety type idea. And then of course, fear of a dark side of women that is then projected onto film. So I didn't know if you, thought of that at all when you were participating.
I did. And I'm so glad that you also mentioned Double Indemnity. That was, I believe, the first movie that I saw in preparation when I was doing research on it. And it was also, so when, well, I remember auditioning for the role. And then once I got it, I said, okay, like, what are my next steps? And I had already gotten earlier that year in San Francisco, that was my favorite bookshop. It's called Russian Hill Bookstore.
Okay.
And it's on Pollock Street for Bay Area natives. It's on Pollock Street, and they have a section at the beginning where it's all like used books. So I would always go and like roam through after my gym class and after getting Bob's Donuts. And I remember grabbing this book. I want to say it was around April or May, a year before shooting. It's called Somewhere in the Night, and it tells a tale of film noir. It has a chronological list of all the film noirs. And I remember that one day I was working in hospitality. I remember I was bartending, had a customer, told him about the film that I had gotten cast in, and I had my book with me, and they said, oh, we're avid like film noir lovers. 2 hours later, we met at I think it was Vesuvio, also in Columbus, in SF, and we started going through that list and highlighting the biggest and major ones. Double Indemnity was my first task, and of course Barbara. I mean, how can you not love her? And seeing how she addressed it as well, and then of course like going to Bridget and Montse's Falcon, and I just kept going on this rabbit hole of femme fatales. What is the pattern? I always think of patterns because I also studied psychology. So I always think of patterns when addressing a character and what you see on the script, and especially when doing research. And of course, the pattern of vulnerable men, no purpose, and trying to manipulate a situation without knowing that I have, the upper hand here, but he cannot know that.
Before we chatted, and this is something, I know it's a little difficult sometimes, so I don't want to, if you don't want to talk about it, that's okay. But you mentioned that this character connects to you in your younger version of yourself. And I just wanted to, kind of see was it something you felt immediately when reading it? Did that, reading the character, did that come later, this connection? And, anything about that digs into the deeper parts of this character? Because again, what I thought was really interesting was that it's a tropey type character, but there was depth to it and complexity, which is, hard to do. And I thought you did a great job. So curious where that might come from.
Thank you. Yes. Growing up, and I think I grew up with a very beautiful mother who had me very young. She had me, and she's always been a lioness. But because I was 17 when she had me. So me growing up also meant that she was growing up, right? And I would also inform a lot of my decisions about the world, because when some people call it like privilege, but when you are good looking and being female and having the authority as well to make your own decisions. And I've always been very outspoken. I started my pilot career when I was 19, like whether you like it or not, I'm going to do it. And then, moved to the Middle East. I always did what I wanted, but I had also been met with a lot of volatility and disdain from a particular group of people, particularly men, that didn't agree with me choosing that path. And I had also seen that around my mother. Well, they would underestimate her at times because she's so beautiful and kind. And there's something that grew in me where I said, well, why is this a motive for other people to feel like they have ownership over me? And that really started informing a lot of the films that I started watching. I remember I think Virgin Suicides, Leon the Professional, even American Beauty. And I started really at 18, 19 going into, this new rabbit hole of films where I could see the females taking ownership of their bodies, their psyche, their choices with without needing the validation, the external validation from men. And if they needed it, they would use it to their own advantage. So that's how I saw it, in a way, being parallel, because for so many years, to this day, I think it happens where for some reason people have opinions over what you do, how you do it, what you wear. And, it's not necessary. Sure. Like, I don't need approval and I can stand my own 2 feet. But the reality that you sometimes say is feeling objectified, I would say, is something that Marie had felt for a very long time. And she decided to take ownership and said, okay, well, I'm going to show you how objectified you can be.
Yeah, that seems to be the femme fatale idea is again, but it's interesting because it's from always the male perspective in terms of writing, I think, yes. Right? So it is the male fear. I wonder, do you have, I mean, that's my view. I don't know if you agree with that, but it's like, I think in the 1940s when film noir came, the way we think of a lot of these women is that they represented this fear of, these women had been working during World War II. They've been taking all these male jobs. There was like Susie the Riveter type thing. And they were literally working, women were literally working on submarines and shipbuilding and just very quote unquote masculine jobs. And then all the men came home and it's like, now what do we do with all these women? And, you have women who is like, I don't want to go back to, the kitchen or whatever. And so there's like a fear that is, I always found it interesting because like the 40s and 50s is thought of as the Leave It to Beaver era, where you have the perfect, white picket fence, but then you have all these, kind of darker roots and scary things happening that people don't want to talk about.
Yes. And the expectations. The codependency and the expectations.
Yeah. So, and I think the femme fatale kind of comes out of that. It comes out of that fear, generally speaking. But again, it is a male story, I think.
I think yes, and I agree. I think a lot of that is rooted in abandonment.
Interesting.
Yes.
So men feeling abandoned. Yeah, that's
so.
Interesting.
What do you have at your power to make sure that whoever is in your life that's a female, in this case, like a partner, won't leave?
Yeah.
Because if women are able to, and we see it like day in, day out, right? So if you have like your female who's able to care for herself and take on the kind of jobs that beforehand were unheard of for females, then what does that say about their future, right? So I think it's always like the game of like power, greed, control. And I think that's where the universe, just like took a turn for the femme fatales, because they were able to get a hold of that. But not only, I think it's vengeance with a cause.
Vengeance with a cause. For the femme fatale.
For the femme fatale, yeah.
Okay, so they have a purpose behind it. I'm trying to think of some of the examples, because a lot of times it seems that like in Double Indemnity, there's, what's the idea there? That she's manipulating him for, it seems like it's just for money, but I guess it's because in a situation where you don't get the power in that sense, like financially, so she's using what she can or something. I don't know.
And I think it wasn't only, I think even Bridget Matilda's Falcon as well. And I saw it later on with, I think, Out of the Past. And there were a few others that I had the opportunity to see, of course. But at the end of the day, I think the narrative has been to create characters that allow females to have control again, instead of always put on the pedestal of like, I need saving.
Yeah, so they're not the damsel in distress type character only, which, that there's the other side of a female character. And what's that?
Yes, a female in distress that needs rescue. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Having more ownership.
Yeah, and you need rescuing from her almost in this case.
So.
In this case. So that's a very different perspective on it. So what are other influences that you have, or even just, like what have you learned about femme fatales or the story of female characters from this experience? Any new developments?
Yes. Especially afterwards, I would
After,
say.
okay.
During, while you're preparing for, at least like in my experience, when I'm preparing for the role, it's a lot about the script and breaking it down and creating, the moments before and the backstory. I usually have a journal for each character, so I will write down like a story of like how Marie's life started and forwards, and like I'll have a set playlist also to get into character. But what happened afterwards is that I just have like, well, first of all, before Marie, I had done another show, which is the late Henry Moss. And I played Conchala, which is another character that's derailed. And if you like Sam Shepard, he's an expert in functional families. You probably know him from like True West or,
Sure, yeah.
But essentially, she was a mad woman, and she drove everyone insane, and you never knew what was real and what wasn't. And that tied so strongly with Marie. So afterwards, like for me, I had always been drawn to those characters, but even someone like Toni Collette in Hereditary, I love the work that Ari Aster has done, for example.
Okay. Yeah.
Short sequences, and I love horror. So I've
too.
always, yeah, you do?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what your favorite Japanese horror film is?
Oh, I don't know. I guess, you said Japanese horror. I guess I just meant horror. I don't know that I'm very knowledgeable about Japanese.
Or like your favorite horror film. I'm very curious because I'm a huge fan.
Well, right now it's actually a show, The Haunting of Hill House. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I think it's one of the great works of modern art in our era. From a really, because it's real gothic. So I like gothic stories. The Castle of Otranto. What's that? Perfectly
Splendid.
Yeah,
that's to that little girl who's always like splendid. It's wonderful.
One of the characters, like I can't remember which one said that. Yeah,
2 seasons. So I don't know. I don't remember which one was which.
Oh, you might maybe. So yeah, the Bly Manor is the second one. Yeah, so that one, and that's a very different world. I saw it. I didn't like that as much. The Haunting of Hill House, the first one, which is based or inspired by a book by Shirley Jackson, which is a great book too. But they did so much more with the show. And, but anyway, so, it's a little off topic, but there are interesting things about, again, female complexity and psychology in horror. And I think like Sharp Objects, I tried to bring this up with,
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you got to watch Sharp Objects. And that one's, again, so this is the difference, because I think it's these deep psychological women who are portrayed by women. So that's the difference. These are written by women. So Shirley Jackson, Haunting of Hill House, Jane Eyre, The Mad Woman in the Attic is a classic one. That's I'm in Austin Shakespeare, but we do more than Shakespeare stuff. And we just did, I guess now it's 2 years. Time is flying. But a couple years ago, we did Jane Eyre. Yeah. And we did Macbeth recently. So there's Lady Macbeth. So there's this, when I talk about film noir, femme fatale, there's deep roots that go back to these ancient stories of the Furies and things like that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Or Merida. But also, like, going back to the Haunting of Hill House, for example, Victoria Pedretti, the one of the actresses that then went on to do You on season.
Yes. I've seen the first season of that, I think. Yeah. It's first 2 seasons.
But she also is you see her layers, and you see like the way that she has characters, which is also, the element of horror, I think, in the psychosis. That's why I like a lot of Freudian. I like the dream analysis as well, that I've seen Chloe Zhao do a lot, especially in Hamnet, for example. And
I love that. Yeah.
Yes. And the connection with ancestors, because like you said, it's something that's been in the past. And Streetcar Named Desire, you have somebody like Blanche, which, funny enough, I played Stella and I didn't play Blanche, but something, it's a little bit, just, you don't know what's real and what isn't, and lives in her own world.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of the stories about females seem to have a duality part to them. right? Like Lady of I mean, this is clear in film noir in particular, but I think it's uniquely a female role in literature, at least in the West, where they do have, and maybe this is a byproduct of just being written by men so much, where it's like, because when a man writes a male character, he's more able to just create a fully integrated character, right? Because he knows a little bit more about the inside, but it's much more mysterious. Obviously, another person with completely different experiences. But yeah, I mean, for millennia, there has been stories of there's the woman you meet, and then there's the darkened character you don't really know behind the eyes type thing. And now that character is everywhere, but it seems like there's something unique with the female in that, particularly because they're not seen as being able or as capable of participating in violence, right? Because that's how men in stories work things out or don't, or just destroy, right? Is through violence. Women use this very different approach, which is manipulation. It's psychosis. It's Antony and Cleopatra. It's like her kind of the whole story of her bringing down the Roman Empire in a sense by seducing some of the greatest men. And that's quote unquote the power of women. And it's like film noir is in a very particular functioning of that, where she is consciously, very consciously trying to manipulate the plot itself, getting the character to where she wants him to go, not just based on random emotions that she might be feeling, but just a real concerted effort to do that. So I find it very fascinating, the whole way that we portray women. It does seem to be changing in cinema. I don't know if you agree with that, or if you think there's positive changes.
I think we see some changes, not enough and not fast enough. But I do think, and now I've stepped into the producing side as well. And now, for example, now working on a different film, which is a psychoerotic thriller. So it's written by a female playwright and director. So it's very interesting that the conversation surrounding female filmmakers and actors, producers is still ongoing, to where we still need a lot more attention and finding different ways to tell our stories. Because for so long, like you said, our stories have been told by men. And I think part of the literature shows, especially recently, how the female gaze actually drives a lot of numbers up. So I'm very curious to see like how that narrative is changing.
Wait, say that again. I may not be super familiar with what you're saying. So the female gaze, as in not the male gaze, which
the female gaze.
The female
stories
gaze
by the female.
Okay. Because when I think of male gaze, I think of the kind of just sexualization that is through the male eyes. So you're just saying like just generally the portrayal of women through a female's eyes.
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed.
Sorry. I think I misunderstood.
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, so and you mentioned Hamnet is a great example, which I thought was beautiful.
I cried for 2 days.
Yeah.
The second day, I remember I was laying down and I suddenly started thinking, and I have one of my friends is in it, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you liked it." And I was like, "I know, I cried for 2 days," because then the following day I just kept thinking about the end scene that I'm not going to spoil, but it's heartbreaking, and there's truly nothing like the theater. There's never going to be anything like having the shared experience of being with a live audience that participates in the recollection of memories for the character that you're portraying and how they inform the character's choices. It's magical.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'm on the board of Austin Shakespeare, so we do a lot of Shakespeare stuff and a lot of these other stories. And I agree, there's something special about just being there with a bunch of people watching these live actors on stage.
Especially here in New York. I mean, you have so many opportunities all the time to witness it in real life. And
you guys have some good stuff out there. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you prefer acting on stage or film?
On stage.
Oh, you prefer that? Okay. Okay, that's really cool. I always wondered about that because on stage is definitely, for me, I've only done like some amateur stuff, but it's like very fulfilling. But it's definitely, it seems harder to me to act on stage personally. I don't know if you find that, but that's just my personal.
I understand. Like for me, it's different because it feels like when you're in front of a camera, you need to hide the emotion and show that you're abstaining from feeling the emotion to show the intensity. Whereas on stage, for me, it's like a flip that switches on and off, and I usually black out on stage. So whatever happens there, I don't remember.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. This is why I think I'll probably just stick with the being an amateur, because I've heard of that type of thing before, but I prefer being like behind the scenes a little bit more. But yeah, like there's that type of thing never happens to me. I'm always so conscious. But I can imagine that if you really, but I've also only played like bit parts, and like I played the Prince and Romeo and Juliet. Like I didn't, not like super complex characters. I haven't really tried that too much. Yeah. I prefer writing and things like that, but yeah.
I like writing as well. Yeah. Not as much as I perform. I'm a performer, and it's body. I just need to like put it out there.
It, yeah.
But I would say that that is at least what I found the biggest difference. And also on stage, it's the shared collective experience with an audience, and I think it's so much is on your shoulders, and every day is different. Every performance, there's no performance is ever the same, but there's something very freeing and cathartic in performing on stage that I don't have quite found it in film yet. I have more experience in theater than in film, so perhaps over the years I will be able to.
You mean as an actress?
Yes.
Okay. You have it. Yeah. Because as an audience member, I feel it, but so you're saying when you're performing on film, you don't sometimes feel that catharsis like you do.
It's different.
It's different.
It's different because it's more calculated, and it's okay. Cameras on and off, and you have other people, and you don't have your director, DP, PA, hair and makeup. You don't have them in the same room when you're rehearsing. Which is, I think rehearsing is like the biggest in an actor's life. I think it's the biggest gift.
Yes,
I know that
I agree.
There are some directors that allow you to rehearse with your fellow castmates when shooting a film, but for the most part, like you have 3 months of theater rehearsals, thankfully, and you're able to connect to the rest of your cast from with a different depth. I would say
it becomes a family basically, and
yes,
yeah, for sure.
And then
then what? And then you yeah.
It's an end. Yes, the post-show depression.
Oh, geez, yeah, I agree. Okay, so we're running out of time, but I wanted to ask. It's kind of a overview or like what you think now that we're talking about catharsis, and we have this modern neo-noir film. And, why should somebody experience this dark world with manipulation and challenges and murder? And it's a fun murder mystery in that sense. But, what about like the kind of, I guess, the purpose behind it to you in setting this in a modern suburban world, which is what I found one of the interesting things about it.
If you go into Netflix or HBO or Hulu, whichever subscription that you have, hopefully you have Amazon Prime. Yeah. I would say that you do no longer come across the genre of film noir as often. What does that say about the state of our world right now? I think we are living in a particularly dark era where media continues to be manipulated. And this film is shining a light on what a lot of people in this day and age are trying to turn a blind eye on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a deep theme because it's not just the social media influencer. There's all, without giving too much away, there's all kinds of media manipulation. So it's an interesting view of that, which all of us are aware of in our world today, but it's like a perspective on that from a film noir, perspective, way of looking at things, which gives you a certain dark tint and gray tint on the whole situation.
Exactly. And especially now, I think some people have a level of consciousness that allows them to see what's happening. But for those who are unsure of, what's going on in their surroundings, I think it's an important wake-up call.
Yeah. Yep. And I think we're all hopefully waking up to it. So I was hoping to bring this up earlier, but we're out of time. So I just wanted to give a homework assignment since I'm a teacher. I can't help it.
Please.
But have you, and this is a joke one, you don't have to actually do this, but have you read the John Keats poem, La Belle Dame's Merci? Have you ever read that?
No.
Okay. So it's a short ballad. It's a romantic, John Keats, one of my favorite poets. He's a romantic English writer of the early 1800s. And it's, again, a short ballad, but I think it's very interesting perspective to bring to East Bay Confidential in your character is La Belle Dame, the woman, the beautiful woman without mercy is what it means.
Okay.
And it's basically about a beautiful woman who's like a fairy who seduces a knight who's wandering around, and she leaves him drained, and he's in this horrible place, and he's just kind of left there going around. So that'll be that'll be my homework assignments for the audience to go read that, look into that one. Again, it's not super long, and it's worth reading and rereading a couple times because it's beautiful language. And thank you for.
I found it here.
What's that?
I just found it here.
Oh, okay.
So I'm excited for everyone's take on it as well.
Yes. Yeah. So, Marcia, and I'm sorry for being. I can't do the accent quite right, but Marcia. But thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for your portrayal of the character and for working on this film. And I hope to see you in many, many more films, and maybe even going to New York City to see you on in a play there.
Thank you so much, Kirk. Yeah. Thank you for your time, and I hope everybody else enjoys East Bay Confidential.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.